Welcome to New Possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. Today I was having a discussion with some colleagues, two young African American women, and we were talking about these black church burnings around the country. As many of you know, 7 to 8 African American churches have been burned down in different cities around the country. The most recent happened in South Carolina. There's been one in Ohio, North Carolina, Georgia, Tennessee, and Florida. And the question is, what are we prepared to do about it? As people are celebrating the Supreme Court decision, a decision that deals with same-sex marriage, as they are doing cartwheels and, dancing and doing the cabbage patch over that decision, a war continues to be waged against black people. Right before these churches started to burn, 9 African Americans were killed as they prayed in church in Charleston, South Carolina. And now the churches are being burned down. And make no mistake about it, this is not just an attack on Christians. This is an attack on all black people. Whether you're a Christian, a Muslim, an atheist, an agnostic, a Buddhist, a Hebrew, it doesn't matter. Because the fact of the matter is they are attacking a black institution. They are waging war on one of the key institutions in the black community, one of the few institutions in our community that we govern on our own, one of the few institutions in our community that we control. We control the economy of these churches. They are our institutions that we own and control, and those institutions are under attack. They're under attack, and I've read a couple of articles that try to explain away these incidents. They try to say, well, it was caused by lightning or there may be some electrical problem. And that may very well be the case in a few of these incidents, but I don't buy it until I have actual concrete proof that that's the case. It is no coincidence that these burnings happened shortly after the massacre in Charleston. That can't be a coincidence. And then the most recent church that was burned in South Carolina was burned down by the KKK in 1995. So I don't think that it's a coincidence that that same church was burned down again in 2015. See, we have to stop with having a naive mentality. This mentality that says we should forgive and forget, that we should love our enemies, embrace everyone, lower our guard. We need to be on point. We need to do what real men and women do, and that's protect and defend ourselves, our communities, our institutions, and our churches by any means necessary, in the words of Malcolm. We have a legal right and a moral duty to exercise our responsibility of self-defense. Somehow we have been so thoroughly brainwashed into believing that it's somehow radical to take up arms and defend yourself. No other people think like this. When the United States has a problem with an enemy abroad, they don't love them to death. They don't forgive them to death. They wage war and bring them death. And we have to understand that we will never be taken seriously as a people as long as we continue to love our enemies and forgive our enemies and lay down our lives before our enemies like a lamb being led to slaughter. We have to stand up and be men and women. We can't just sit back and allow these people to burn our churches. We can't just sit back and allow these people to go into our houses of worship and murder people. We need to exercise all precautions, stay on point and on our post. And we need to demand action from our elected officials. We don't need President Obama putting on a Negro show for black people, giving us empty symbolism, singing for us. We need that brother to tell us what his plan is to deal with these problems that confront us. These problems of hate crimes, these problems of churches being burned down, and other problems like police brutality. Problems like poverty and unemployment that disproportionately impact our community. We need to demand answers from President Obama. We need to demand answers. Because there is a war being waged on black people. As we sit around being distracted by foolishness, the Supreme Court is poised to eliminate affirmative action. The case of Fisher versus the University of Texas is being reheard by the Supreme Court. And quite a few people have speculated that this is a bad sign, that this is a sign that perhaps the Supreme Court will finally get rid of affirmative action. And essentially what that will do is burn a bridge of opportunity for our young people. People like myself would not be lawyers or doctors or other types of professionals if it wasn't for affirmative action. Affirmative action wasn't a handout. It was an opportunity to pursue higher education, an opportunity that not only made it possible for people like myself to pursue higher education, it also created a diverse learning environment so that people from different backgrounds can learn from one another. But if that's eliminated, then we're looking at a situation where schools are less diverse. We're looking at a situation where African Americans have less opportunities for higher education. This is a crucial issue. Very crucial. We don't have time to be distracted by foolishness. A war is being waged against our community, and it's time for us to wake up and take action. It's time for us to organize. I was reading online yesterday about the killings in Baltimore and the shootings here. Between Monday and I think it's between the weekend and Monday or Tuesday, 13 people were shot in Baltimore. Baltimore has far exceeded the number of homicides that took place last year. Those killings are nothing but a manifestation of the war against black people. African Americans are not just killing each other because they are pathological. There are socio-economic conditions that generate crime, that generate violence. You have whole communities in this city where the young people are unemployed, where young people are on the street all day and night, just hanging out with no jobs or no opportunities to advance in life. You have failing schools in this city, schools that don't educate our young people. So in this environment where they don't have education and they don't have jobs, and when they're in an environment that is rich with guns and drugs, then naturally you are going to have a violent outcome. And Frantz Fanon talks about this in his book, The Wretched of the Earth. He talks about how oppressed people exercise their violence against themselves, against their own community, until they reach a point of political consciousness where they realize who their enemy is. See, it is time for us to wake up as a people. It's time for us to pay attention to things that actually matter. It's time for us to stand up. There is no reason why grown black men should be out in front of a church crying and hugging one another like weak, feeble women. Those black men should be defending their church and their people. They should maintain and protect the community instead of crying and loving and forgiving their enemy. My question to you is, what are you prepared to do? Are you going to sit down while they burn down your churches? Are you going to sit back while the police kill our young people? Are you going to sit back and watch the violence unfold in your black community? Are you just going to sit back as the destruction of our community continues? We don't have any problem going to Iraq and fighting against the Iraqi people. We don't have any problem going to Afghanistan, fighting against the Afghan people. So why do we have a problem when it comes to fighting to protect ourselves and our community? Many of us don't have a problem shooting our own black brothers and sisters down in the street over colors and territory, over drugs and money. But when it comes time to defending ourselves and our community, we don't want to fight. We don't want to stand up. It's time for us to wake the hell up.